Everybody, let's go live with my first ever pharmacist stroke toxicologist at Moskin Lab. If you follow me and you know my favourite science communicators, you will know he's right up there in my top 5. He's amazing. And I'm going to invite him to join, and he is going to answer all of your questions that you've sent in, but also anything live as well. He's just that sort of perfect mixture of working in the beauty industry. He's a safety and health cosmetic assessor, but he's also a pharmacist and a toxicologist. Hello, Mohammed. Right, I'm going to invite you to join. Where are you? It's like, I always do a fingers crossed. I think it's because I'm so old I don't quite believe that Wi-Fi actually works. Any luck? There he is.
Hey, hey, how are you?
I am such a huge fan. I'm fangirling slightly.
What you can say about me? I am the one who's fangirling right now. Can you hear me well?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing very great.
Good. Now, can I just say you're already popular? I've got loads of questions, but start by introducing you, what you do for a living, because genuinely, I don't think a lot of people who consume beauty products know such a person as you exists.
Okay, perfect. So, hey everyone, my name is Mohammed. You can call me Mo from my Moskin Lab. I'm originally a trained pharmacist, and I recently finished my master's degree here in University of Milan in safety assessment and toxicology. And recently I started a small job in Skin Masterclass as education manager for their platform for educating professionals about skincare. So yeah, I'm passionate about skincare. I use my knowledge that I got through education to help you be equipped with all the tools that you need so you can go through the market with better safety in mind, that everything is going to be okay and nothing is going to kill you.
I also called you earlier on more of a plain talker than I am, because I tell it like it is. You leave me standing. I love your posts and I quite often repost them, but every so often I'm like, oh, he's not pulling any punches.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't know that in person. I swear I wouldn't hurt an ant, but when I want to say something, I want it to be as transparent as possible, as plain as possible. Because as a consumer, everyone deserves to know everything, because you are spending your hard-earned money on a product, cosmetic, whatever you want. It should work for your own benefit, as simple as that.
Well, pharmacists and toxicologists have always worked in beauty. Beauty is incredibly heavily regulated. Why do you think, not that I don't know what you're going to say, why do you think that you being on Instagram and busting the myths about safety in cosmetics is more important now than perhaps it's ever been in the history of beauty?
Actually, it all started with the rise of those movements that I would say that spread a lot of misinformation, like clean beauty, safer ingredients, no list, the dirty list, etc. A lot of people, unfortunately, believe this because it's a powerful message. It relies a lot on emotion. Emotion manipulation is encoded in our gene. We are easily triggered by emotions. And it makes money for those movements and industries that focus on this kind of marketing. Because if I told you I have a product A that is free from X, Y, and Z, but the competitive product contain all of those nasty ingredients, without thinking, just using your emotion will go with my product because it will save you in a way.
Okay, so I agree with you completely. I was recently in Miami, and they asked our opinion, a group of people from doctors to nurses to influencers to journalists, what they thought of the clean beauty movement. And we were all saying that there is a massive backlash against it, because thanks to people like you and the scientific community saying, please don't shame people for buying products. There's no such thing. If there's a clean beauty product, then there must be a dirty product. There's no such thing as a dirty product. So talk a little bit about how heavily regulated beauty products and cosmetics are, and that as consumers, we should be comfortable and safe in the knowledge that they're heavily regulated.
So basically, cosmetics, it depends on the country and the market. I will focus a little bit on the EU, a little bit more than the US and recently the UK. But in the EU, every cosmetic ingredient that raise any concern by the industry can be directed toward the European Commission to tell them, okay, we need an opinion and regulation around this ingredient. This European Commission, that also elected by the public, can take this opinion to what we call the Scientific Committee for Consumer Safety. It's a panel of independent scientists that can review the literature about any type of ingredient, and they set a safety limit. Those safety limits can be then sent back to the European Commission to be written into the law. And then everyone will have to follow this law, every brand, every manufacturer that sell in the EU. And after that, each product that contains this ingredient that is regulated has to go through a toxicologist that is hired by the brand itself to make sure that it follows the regulation that is already in the law. So you have kind of like a two-layer of safety for each product that is placed in the market.
Now, you mentioned the EU because obviously you work within the EU, and I know that the UK has left the EU, but I feel that we are going to comply to EU regulations. Is it safe to say that a product manufactured in America that wants to sell globally would have to comply to EU regulations anyway? Because I remember speaking to Caroline Hirons because obviously she's just launched a brand, and she said, we want to sell all over the world. We have to comply to everybody's regulations. Do you agree?
Yes, totally. So basically, then every market that you want to sell in, the regulation must be met, or the product will not be placed on the market. And most of products that are popular, that are sold globally, they are matching all the regulations, specifically that what regulators and toxicologists call the European Union are the gold standard when it comes to safety of cosmetic ingredients and the regulation. So all those products are meeting those requirements. So you don't have to be afraid of this product being a US based or South Korean or whatever.
Okay, so let's talk about, without naming particular brands, or feel free to name particular brands, some of the ingredients that have been demonized in clean beauty, because it drives me bonkers. There is this appeal to nature fallacy, and I have members in my family who come round and have you got a natural SPF? Have you got a natural moisturizer? And I always say, what does that mean? What does natural mean to you? Is it regulated? Is the term regulated? Is it a misnomer? What do you think?
I think, first of all, it's not regulated. So every brand can make a natural claim with a specific stamp that has a specific requirement that the product has to fill before being approved, let's say, by this brand. And that makes it a big problem because, for example, a brand X can say, if it doesn't have parabens, it doesn't have colorants or any other preservative, that is clean. For another brand, it doesn't have let's say silicones, sulfate, it's considered natural or clean. So this is a problem. So you might be using different kind of clean labeled product or natural labeled product, and they all contain all the kind of the ingredient that already available on the market. So in a way, they are manipulating you to think that you are using a special product, which in most cases it isn't.
Let's talk about probably the top 5 ingredients that are demonized. Let's start with parabens. How come they're demonized, and are the alternatives any better?
Unfortunately, demonized by just one misinterpreted studies that in 2004 made the storm in the news articles, magazine, everywhere. Everyone was talking about that they found parabens in cancer cells. And since then, the popularity, unfortunately, of the parabens were falling bit by bit. And until now, this moment, you can't find any product with parabens anymore. The alternatives, unfortunately, are not better. Like literally, you can say worse than paraben when it comes to safety, sensitization of the skin. There are like way more case reports of people are sensitized to phenoxyethanol or any different type of preservative, and we don't have the data. Paraben has been used for almost a century. So we have data, we have tested them on a different type of population, different type of tests, different type of data that we have. But those new approved or alternative or safer, they are not as effective, they are not as safe, but the public decided that that's what they want, and they pushed the industry toward this decision.
I also find it fascinating that parabens occur in nature. So some of the fruit we have naturally has parabens in it. So to me, this demonization of this preservative system is crazy. And I was speaking to some dermatologists, and they were saying that they see the rise in contact irritant dermatitis and perioral dermatitis, and they think it's a combination of lack of proper preservative systems and overuse of many different ingredients. And they were saying they are seeing an explosion in people with contact irritant dermatitis, and they think it's the lack of proper preservative systems.
Very true. And another reason that can lead to this situation is that they are using the newer, less effective, so they have to use them at higher concentration, which leads to side effects.
Okay. Silicons. How come silicons got demonized? And by the way, I love a silicon. This hair would be this big without silicon.
Without silicon. Yeah, so basically silicons, I try to follow the start of the trend, I would say, but I couldn't find any like specific moment in history that said, okay, silicons are the next demon or whatever. But they are the most inert. When we talk about ingredient, inert means they don't react with anything. They are lazy. They just do their job and stay and don't do anything else. And maybe because the certain rise of that last year, or in 2020 to be exact, the EU restricted some type of silicon, D4 and D5. D4 was completely removed from leave-on product, and D5 was restricted in rinse-off product to 0.1%. And I think that led to thinking that, okay, those are very toxic, and why are they replaced or removed or restricted? The most concern about those silicon was not human health. It was more to the environmental aspect. Yeah. They are very persistent. They stay in the environment for a long time, and they are not biodegradable. So that's an issue. And as you know, the EU take environmental concern very seriously. So they restricted those products, not for safety, but for these reasons.
It's very interesting. I've just created a video on scar management, and the clinical excellence for scar management is to put silicone on your scars to heal. So if they were remotely problematic for skin, you would not put them on a healing wound, trust me. So yeah, that's a great one. Sulfates.
Oh God.
Interestingly enough, Mo, I do feel that and you're probably too young to remember this, but I do remember going back to, I think both of them were demonized in hair care. Silicons, I feel, were the famous Vidal Sassoon wash and go, when they were very early ones, and they made your hair quite gritty and they had a build up. So I feel like that's part of the problem. But sulfates, what's wrong with a sulfate? That's just a cleansing ingredient. Explain it to me, Mo.
Yeah, so sulfate is like a group of ingredients that help literally clean your skin, your hair, remove all this oil buildup, sebum, dead cells, etc. And they are so good doing this job, this specific function. But due to their chemical structures, sometimes if the formulation can be a little bit harsh for some people, not everyone, because chemical structures, they are very thin, so they can get wedged into your skin and disrupt the barrier a little bit. And with current formulation, this problem is non-existent. So they took the reputation of old formulation and they are running with it until now. Some of the best drugstore shampoos are all based on sulfate, which is not the worst.
Honestly, this hair is triple processed. It's colored. I have a Brazilian blow dry and I heat style it. I love a sulfate shampoo, don't worry. And anybody that tells you, any hairdresser that tells you need a sulfate-free shampoo, you have to say to them that modern formulations are better. You can balance out a sulfate with a beautiful range of emollients and humectants. You're fine. please, just marketing
Perfectly safe.
terms. One of my followers, and this is a big one, right? One of my followers said she's still confused by the difference between sun filters and the difference between the nomenclature we use. So physical versus chemical, and we know everything is a chemical, organic versus inorganic. And are any of them better?
To be honest, both are amazing and safe and very scrutinized filters. Even zinc oxide are being scrutinized again for the nano form of it here in the EU. So basically, both are super safe. They are, and you know that the regulation work for safety when it comes to UV filters, that they are updated with any type of small concern that pops up. So, for example, organic UV filters, if you look at, and it's publicly available, everyone can check it. So on the SCCS website, you can see the opinion for every UV filter and check the actual report. Sometimes it can be 100 pages and can be overwhelming, but it can show you why they went with that decision. And most of the time, it's a very conservative approach here in the EU. Very, very conservative towards, okay, we might be like 1,000 or 12,000 times away from a toxic dose. That's not safe enough. We need more. So that's why some ingredients are being reduced. And for example, let's take avobenzone. In the US, it's approved, I think, for 3%. Here in the EU is 5%, which is higher. And that doesn't mean that the EU is less safe and the US is more safe when it comes to this ingredient. So you have to understand it is not related to actual safety, because if any ingredients, and one of the non very famous UV filter recently got removed. It's called for MPC, and it's removed, and it's not very used in the current formulation. It was removed just because of in vitro data that suggested, okay, we have enough data that it might be an endocrine disruptor, and it was immediately removed. So you don't have to be afraid about this.
Okay, so just to let everybody know, SPFs are probably the most regulated product on the market. They're regulated in the same way that drugs are, certainly in America. In vitro means it was, for everybody that doesn't know, means it was tested in a Petri dish on cells. In vivo means it was tested actually on human beings. Can we absorb nanoparticles of SPF? Do they end up in our bloodstream?
The latest report from the SCCS said that if we absorb any kind of zinc, we absorb it not as the form that can cause problem, which is zinc oxide. We absorb it as ions, which means zinc alone. And zinc is an actually trace element that we actually ingest in our food and we need for better immunity, better nails, etc. So when they studied the nanoform, they found the penetration did not go below the protective layer or skin barrier of your skin. So you don't need to be afraid or scared, because it's the word nano, which means can penetrate or accumulate in your body, which is not the case.
Talking about absorbing, one of the questions that came in from my followers was, are any cosmetics endocrine disruptors? I feel like this is like the intelligent scaremongering here now. And in fact, when I was in Miami, there was an aesthetic doctor talking about possible endocrine disruptors in skincare. What does it mean? Is it true?
Okay, so let's start with what does endocrine mean. Endocrine is your system, is a messenger system in your body. It allows your organ to communicate through messengers, through chemical compounds that travel through the blood from the sender to the receiver. An endocrine disruptor is a chemical that is able to disrupt this process, make it not functioning correctly or normally. And to, let's say, to label a chemical to be an endocrine disruptor, first it has to bind to your receptors inside your body. Some cosmetic ingredients, for example, like some UV filters and some parabens, are able to do that. But the second point, it needs to activate this receptor. Binding alone is not enough. The third kind of point that you need to understand is that there are chemicals, the actual natural messenger hormones in your body are like millions of times and hundreds of thousands of times stronger than the binding to the receptor compared to those compounds. So these compounds have zero chance of binding, activating, and staying on your receptor. So you don't need to be scared about this. It's just used to make you feel that you are taking the safer option. So endocrine disruption is just a fancy word.
It's very interesting because I was chatting to Paula Begon, the founder of Paula's Choice, who has a phytoestrogen body cream, which she loves. And she was showing me the befores and afters on postmenopausal skin. And I said, where can I get hold of it? She said, we can't sell it in the UK because they deem phytoestrogens to be endocrine disruptors. So I think it's under review at the moment. But I think what's really interesting here is, as a toxicologist, talk about the dose making the poison, because I love this. This is such an important message for everybody to hear.
Yes, so basically the dose makes the poison is the first phrase you will hear if you decided to pursue toxicology. Literally the first class, the professor will tell you about this. What does it mean is that literally everything can become a poison or a toxin with the correct dose. So let's say a simple example. Water, for example, which we cannot survive without, at a high concentration. I recently made a reel, unfortunately, a young lady from the US ingested a huge amount of water in a small period of time, and unfortunately, she passed away. That is water that we cannot live without for a few days. So literally everything, oxygen that we breathe, we breathe the oxygen at 20% of the atmosphere. If we decide to inhale 100% oxygen for a long period of time, we will have a huge problem with our lungs. So literally everything, vitamins, nutrients, anything that you consider inert can be toxic.
And I think the important thing here is, for me, there seems to be a dichotomy in the beauty industry. So when you speak to most formulating chemists, they say your skin's barrier function, the whole job of your skin is to keep things out. So we're working really hard to trick these active ingredients, trick these peptides, trick this retinol, just to get into the top layers of your skin. And they work really hard to get these delivery systems to get it in. Then you've got the clean movement saying everything you put on your skin goes into your bloodstream. What's true, Mo?
First is that your skin is not a sponge. Let's get it out of the way. I made, I think, like a dozen of reels that I'm saying, please, your skin is not a sponge. I wish it was for a certain amount of drugs. That would be amazing. So we can say goodbye to needles, because if we applied our vaccine like a cream, everyone would be happy. So basically your skin, I would describe it as a decent selective barrier. This is the most straightforward description of it. It allows some cosmetic ingredients or drugs to penetrate, but the conditions are very specific that the amount, this route of dermal application is very limited. We use it for, as you say, for phytoestrogen creams, for example, and we use it for example, as a nicotine patch that allow dermal, but we need an actual patch on the skin to stay for a long time to allow this absorption. We don't have, for example, systemic antibiotics that we can apply onto your skin and say that's okay, because the skin is quite good at keeping things in, the good things, and keeping the bad things out.
Somebody just asked, is skin waterproof?
Skin is technically waterproof, but not for a long time. As you know, if you had a long bath, your skin starts to wrinkle up, and that is the effect of water changing a little bit your barrier function. But if you stayed for a long time, do you absorb water?
No.
It's not going to happen. Exactly.
That's when you know your skin isn't a sponge, right? Lie in a bath and you suddenly don't get big. Exactly. I think it's one of the other things that I think is interesting, which is this appeal to nature fallacy as well, is what's your opinion on essential oils in skincare? Because a lot of people automatically assume that if something is derived from nature, it's better. So what's your argument, or what's your opinion on essential oils in skincare? Maybe even ingested. Some people seem to believe they're natural and they can ingest them, as opposed to synthetic fragrances.
Okay, basically, essential oil situation is it depends situation. So let's say it as this. So if the essential oil is used by a cosmetic chemist that formulating it into a product with the correct percentage, dosage, etc., it can be a great add-on. For example, for the fragrance, some essential oils also have biological effect like
Tea
antimicrobial, like
tree.
tea tree oil, for example, which is amazing, that can treat a lot of things. But what with the clean beauty, they want you to use those concentrated, pure 100% essential oil. Those can be toxic, even like for small children, if they are exposed for a long time, they can induce neurological effect or neurological toxicity. For your pets and animals, sometimes it can cause a lot of problem. So use essential oil in a product that is well formulated, safety tested, is totally fine, but going with those small bottles of concentrated essential oils without the knowledge of how to use it can be a big problem.
It's very interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like a lot of people who are misled by the clean beauty movement tend to distrust the really big companies. So they distrust the Unilevers and the L'Oreals and the Estee Lauders. They sort of think of them as being a little bit like big pharma. And yet they innately trust the small companies, which I feel are slightly less regulated. So for me, there's a disconnect there. So they believe somebody that's an aromatherapist that's producing something on her kitchen shelf, but they don't trust L'Oreal. And for me, I feel like the larger the company, the more the world is watching, the safer you are with them. The more toxicologists, the more formulating chemists, the more testing labs that they, in my opinion and my experience, they actually hire.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the point is, I recently did a video about animal testing, and a lot of people are attacking, for example, L'Oreal before testing on animal, which is not the case. But if you look at this with, like, took a step back and look at the whole picture, L'Oreal, for example, is one of the most, let's say, generous companies when it comes to developing non-animal methods. Those people don't look at that. For example, Episkin, which is the invention of L'Oreal, is designed, created by L'Oreal, which are accused by some movement that they are testing on animal or making animals suffer, etc. So you have to take a step back and just look at the general picture. No brands wants to test on animal. It's expensive, it takes time, it's unethical. They want something alternative. So the same thing goes for clean beauty. It's a business. I want to say it as plain as possible. They want your money. They don't want you dead. They want your money. And that's totally fine. They don't want to poison you or make you suffer or etc. So they are just producing products that are safe because they have the finance and the research and development ability to produce something that is very good at a low price.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I feel what I dislike most about clean beauty is the thing I said at the beginning. It's if you consider yourself superior because you're clean, you're basically disparaging the rest of the industry. And I also feel it's incredibly elitist because most clean products come at a premium. They're more expensive. And that is, in a current cost of living crisis across the whole of Europe post-pandemic, that is elitist, and it absolutely drives me mad. What do you wish brands would do to educate consumers instead of caving into the demands of paraben-free, sulfate-free, and...
In a perfect world, which I hope I can see one day, is that brands focus more on their science team. They focus more on science team, not the marketing or what the public want. The brands have the ability, like financially, logistically, to actually affect the public itself. So if a big brand, for example, like L'Oreal, decided to say, okay, parabens are totally safe. Here are our scientists explaining to you, making good graphics, making good content. It can shift back the industry towards the correct direction. But I don't know why brands decide to walk with the public, not the other way around, which they can. In a real world, they have the ability, they have the finance, they have everything they need to shift the public toward the correct road.
It's very interesting. I did a live the other day with a formulating chemist, and he said that most often he is briefed now by the marketing team.
Exactly. Exactly. We want a product that does X, Y, Z, and you have to do it.
Yeah. And I genuinely remember a time when I would be meeting the formulating chemists at, say, the Estee Lauder companies, and everything would be driven by innovation and science. It wouldn't be the tail wagging the dog. It would be the dog saying, right, okay, we've got this, we've got this brand new molecule, let's create something around it anyway. So yeah, absolutely. So silly question, but let's answer it. Can chemical sunscreens affect your thyroid function?
To be honest, the sunscreen that I mentioned, the UV filter specifically for MPC that was recently banned in the EU, is banned because they found in vitro data. They were testing it on cells from your thyroid. It affected some pathways at higher concentration than used, but they said that is enough data for us to just ban it. In general, most let's say sunscreen in Europe use the next generation, what I would call them, UV filter. They are chunkier, so they stay on your skin. They are studied and designed. When they are designed, they took into consideration the skin absorptions, so they don't absorb as the old generation, I would say, but with good formulation, even the old generation can be stabilized onto your skin, not moving, do their job, and they can be then sweated off.
Brilliant. Right. Okay. Let's have a look. Products used on the scalp. Is it true that the scalp is more absorbent because of the hair follicles than the face? And what happens with the formulation of hair dyes? Somebody once told me, and I don't know how true it is, that hair dyes are the most often reformulated products in terms of safety.
Yes, because of the oxidizing factor, specifically when it comes to hair dyes. When an ingredient in a hair dye or a hair dye is studied for safety, they do a scenario of how a regular human will use this product. And for hair dyes, the scenario is using it, I think, twice a month or once a month, which is sometimes kind of realistic for some people. And that's why when those kind of criteria or scenarios change during the safety assessment of the product, the whole formula have to follow and meet those requirements again. And for the absorption of the skin, yes, there are regional differentiation between absorption between your face, but I think your forehead and scalp has kind of the same absorption. For example, the most absorbable, let's say, absorbing area of the skin is in the groin area or the private area because of the natural type of the skin that exists there. And that's why you have to be careful with products that are specifically designed for that area.
It's very interesting because you wouldn't know this, Mo, but this is where women put on their HRT gels.
Exactly.
I found another ingredient that somebody's asking us about here. Now, talking about products you would apply to that area, what is it with the demonization of talc, and why have Johnson & Johnson settled if there is no link between talc and endometrial cancer?
So basically, the evidence about talc is not that strong, to be honest. Like, the brand wanted, because as you know, in the US, suing someone is a piece of cake. Here in Europe is not going to happen, and that's why regulation different between EU and the US. So I didn't follow the story completely, to be honest with you, but the evidence that I saw and I read is not strong that exactly say talc will cause this. And why they did that, to be honest, maybe an internal deal with the actual people that are suing. But as scientifically speaking, the evidence is not there. It shouldn't cause this kind of fear and this kind of like, let's agree to settle it behind the corner.
I think it's very interesting. I think and you were saying earlier on about companies like L'Oreal not standing behind parabens. Sometimes I think they just don't want the attention. They just don't want the media attention. That's what happens. Now, this is an interesting one. Skin microbiomes, right? Okay, a lot of people are asking about products for skin microbiomes. Is there any evidence that skin microbiome products work? And then a follow-up question, is there any evidence that what you put on your skin can affect your gut bacteria?
To be honest, it's a very developing and very, let's say, futuristic topic because the science is now catching on to this. The thing is, let's say, start from regulation. In regulation, you are not allowed to use actual live bacteria in your product. That is a full stop point. And the issue is they are telling you you are supporting the microbiome by giving those microbiome or these bacteria, fungi, viruses on your skin some food resources to allow it to,
Prebiotics.
yes, exactly, prebiotic and postbiotic as well. So that is the main goal of it. About the evidence, there are some evidence when it comes for chronic inflammatory diseases like eczema or psoriasis. They have a different quality and quantity of the microbiome compared to a person with a healthy skin. So it's a developing, I would say, research area, and some things will pop up when this research is finalized to something to support maybe the microbiome, make it more diverse, because you want it to be more diverse compared to have one or two types. So I would say it's promising, but don't expect so much right now.
And is anything you're putting on your skin affecting your gut bacteria?
Technically, so the hypothesis is you are applying something on your skin, it affects the bacteria on your skin, and these bacteria usually communicate. They release compounds, they absorb compounds. Those compounds can be absorbed and reach your gut to tell them, okay, something changed. But is it actually approved? It's just a theory right now. There are no specific data because if, let's say, we use a product that contain preservative usually kills bacteria. So we should suffer like a lot when it comes to gut issues compared to the not using any product with preservative. But it's not the case. It's not happening. Maybe there are some little bit of changes that are now under the microscope, but in the future, we definitely know.
The other question I have, which is one of my questions, is I find it fascinating that products are marketed as being gluten-free.
Mm.
If you have a gluten intolerance, should you use gluten-free skincare and hair care?
No, gluten is quite a chunky protein. Very chunky. Even if you have celiac disease, which is the, you should avoid gluten completely because it will affect your life quality and it can add the, like, if you kept being exposed to gluten on the long run with having a celiac disease, cancer can be a risk. That's why how scary it is. But people with celiac disease can use a product topically that contain gluten with no issue.
Yeah, my gut instinct said you were right, and I'm like, maybe they're breeding it, maybe in a lip product, but I was like, that's very strange. Are microplastics in beauty a problem?
Environmentally speaking, yes. Environmentally speaking, which is not my field of expertise, to be honest, but because most of those products that are labeled as having microplastic, they use polymers that are the building blocks of plastic. And because they are polymers, which mean they are big chains in your product, they don't absorb into your skin at all because they are too big to be absorbed. And they are very inert, which means, like I explained, they are very lazy. They don't react with your skin. They don't cause any irritation, etc. So those are the main concern when it comes to safety. But for the environment, they can cause a problem that actually now it's under investigation in the EU. And the Green Deal is the things that will change everything soon.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the Green Deal?
Yes, Green Deal, the scary thing that is upon us. To be honest,
just to quickly, for anybody listening, you might have seen, probably not, but because people like Mo and myself are just obsessed with these things, is there is a set of rules being negotiated on the table at the moment that will directly affect what we can and cannot buy in the future. I think starting 2027, but you're the expert, over to you.
the Green Deal is sealed. Like in 2020, the European Commission said, okay, we are going to do this. The European main goal is environmental, but unfortunately would affect every industry, and specifically the chemical industry, and more specifically the cosmetic one. And it will affect how we safety assess cosmetic ingredients. So what they want to do is this. Now we are relying on risk, which is a very reasonable way of assessing safety, but they want to simplify it into hazard. So to explain this, the difference between risk and hazard, risk is the exposure plus hazard. So let's say you have a lion. I think Michelle did this example about the lion, which is an amazing example. You have a lion, which is a hazard. If it's inside a cage and you are watching this lion, you are not going to get hurt. But because of the switch towards hazard, which says, okay, there is a lion, I can't be in this room, whether it's in a cage, whether it's sleeping, whether it's whatever. So they want to simplify it. And if this actually become a law, a lot of ingredients will be banned. For example, a lot of UV filters will say goodbye to them. A lot of preservative, which will limit our options for preservation, which is in itself is a problem. Plus using higher concentration, as we mentioned earlier.
You and I were chatting earlier on. I said there stock up on your 1% retinols, people, if they're stable, because it will be limited to 0.5% retinol. Exactly. But interestingly enough, it doesn't cover retinaldehyde.
Yes, and do you know why?
No.
Which is the reason, which is like the what described the EU, because simply the data was not submitted. So just as simple as that, for the panel, they did not receive the data about retinol, so we will ignore it. So you know it's not a serious problem. It's just about a very conservative approach for risk assessment.
Is it greenwashing?
For the Green Deal as a total?
Yes.
To be honest, the thing is, like, again, there is a party or a section of the European Commission, supported of course by the public, that push towards the agreement on this. And it is, in my opinion, gonna affect very negatively the cosmetic industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and the industrial chemistry as a whole. So it's kind of is, I don't want to say anything controversial, it's kind of is like very early. We don't have the alternative. We don't have anything that they want those goals to be achieved by 2015 or 2030, that Europe will be carbon neutral. But what you have to do to achieve this can be bad steps, like those, for example, for cosmetics. So I would say kind of yes, but no more comments.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? And it's 2027, isn't it? We've got 4 years time.
So the approval was 2020. The actual legislation is now being finalized. It depends on which aspect of the Green Deal. So in, I think, 2030 or 2050 should be every aspect of this deal is sealed. So making Europe zero carbon emission.
And are companies like L'Oreal lobbying? Are formulating chemists trying to have some sort of input on this to say that these products have been around a long time, they're safe?
I think they are. Like what I've heard recently through one of my professors in school, actually, we were talking about something related to this subject, is that even members of the Scientific Committee for Consumer Safety are mad about this. So I think I will share I saw the interview of one of the members. She is a great toxicologist. I will share it after the live. She was saying is that if that Green Deal is passed completely as expected, like for example, the Scientific Committee for Consumer Safety will be gone. Every ingredient for cosmetic will be evaluated by the European Chemical Agency, ECHA, which is a problem because they focus more, like I said, on hazard, not risk. So none of those people who are very involved in the industry itself is happy about this.
Okay. A couple of extra questions here. Are there any ingredients that we put on our skin in skincare or in hair care that can penetrate into the bloodstream?
Yes, I would say a good number will, but depend again on the dosage. For example, that's why, for example, salicylic acid is for the body product is
Limited.
limited to 0.5% in Europe, but in the US it's 2% because salicylic acid in some condition can be absorbed to 35% of the applied dose. So if you applied, let's say, 100 gram of salicylic acid, 35% of those will be absorbed into your blood. And to be honest, it was kind of annoying to limit salicylic acid because it's an amazing product. The only product that I saw here, it was that allows 0.5% is, I think it was from Primark. They have a skincare line and they have like a spray of salicylic acid, which only got 0.5%.
Okay. It's fascinating, isn't it? I think the rule generally is, for anybody asking these questions, is what is recommended not to use when you're pregnant? Because I feel like that is the most conservative. So, for example, you shouldn't use retinols or retinoids, and you shouldn't use salicylic acid. And you will absolutely find a difference between the percentage you can put on your face here and the percentage you can put on your body. And the reason for that is because they presume that there is a chance you will apply salicylic acid from top to toe. So they have to err on the side of caution. That's why you'll find 2% for your face and 0.5% for your body. And with retinol, currently we can go up to 1%, and I think it's 0.2% for your body.
So for the body, 0.03, which is 0.05% for the body, and for the face, 0.3, okay, which is not much, but I don't know why.
I know, absolutely crazy. Are eyelash growth serums safe? So we're talking prostaglandin analogs here.
Prostaglandin analog, I did a post, I did a written post, I will share it after as well. The SCCS found they cannot conclude if they are safe or not. The reason why, I think it's more not related to actual risk, but to actual definition of a cosmetic product. So let's explain as a cosmetic product shouldn't affect biological processes in your skin or lashes or hair. They should make your skin looks better, as the appearance of the skin. But those prostaglandin analogs actually were shown to be super.
Oh, your Wi-Fi's, you're freezing slightly, and this is really interesting. Come back to me, Mo, come back to me. Are you there? You're back.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you back. You're back. Back to prostaglandin analogs. Sorry,
yeah.
I lost you for a second.
Yeah, sorry, I think my connection. So basically I was saying is that prostaglandin analogs are, the SSCS did not conclude the safety. They didn't have the data to say they are safe. And that is not related to actual risk, but it's more related to the regulatory terminology of cosmetic. Cosmetic, as you know, affect the appearance of the skin. It shouldn't affect biological processes in our skin. But they found that prostaglandin analog actually with very small concentration, that is 0.001% or 5%, are able to affect potently biological processes that makes the lashes grow. So that's why they were scared. Another thing is that the potential side effects, they have a very potent side effect. So they have a higher risk compared to regular cosmetic ingredients. They can make your the skin around your eyes can get pigmented. They can change the color of your eyes, sometimes reversibly, sometimes irreversibly. It depends on the human. And it's related to something with the glaucoma of the eye. There are some kind of data that say, okay, extended use can cause higher pressure in the eye, or what we call glaucoma.
So just to let everybody know, so the eyelash serums were originally found to work because people were using the drops in their eyes, a product called Lumigan, in their eyes for glaucoma, and they noticed their eyelashes grow. So they then developed them to be used in the base of the lashes, but there's always a risk they go in your eyes, and there's the risk, you see. Okay. Is non-comedogenic really a thing? Should we trust brands that market things like that?
To be honest, for me, it's a no, because you don't know. Because what I say is always is your skin is as unique as you. How your skin will react to certain type of ingredients can be totally different. For example, I'm blessed with a very resilient skin. I can use acid, high percentage of retinols with no issues, but other people, a glimpse of fragrance can turn their skin into havoc. So it is not, there is no actually, again, a definition. There is no guidelines. The original test was done, as you know, on rabbit ears, then can switch again to the skin on the back of a human subject. But again, the skin on the back is totally different than your face. So my only advice is just buy a small sample of the product and try it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an interesting thing as well. So SPFs in particular, but generally, are beauty products tested for heat stability? Now, I know the answer to this because I've been in many labs, but people are concerned about how long they can keep their SPFs. So, for example, we had a horrible, wet, damp, cool English summer. If they've bought their SPFs in May, June, and haven't managed to use them, can they still keep them for this time next year?
So basically, the expiration date is your guideline, but there are other factors that determine if you can use this product or not. So first, let's answer, are they tested? Yes, they are tested with sometimes extreme temperature that are not represented, which we call accelerated tests, that to represent a longer period with lower temperature. So they go for 50 degrees Celsius for a 1 month to represent 2 years at 25, for example. So that is an actual fact for all products. But what you can do is just when you buy the product, open it and examine the texture, the smell, the color, etc. If you notice after a period of time there is, for example, separation, that there is a liquid coming out from the emulsion itself, there are change of smell, like the smell is changing, or even the color or texture itself, the best thing when it comes to sunscreen is just say goodbye to it and buy another one.
Yeah. For the person asking, rosemary and hair loss, no, I've just written about it for the Times. No. I do know, it's so funny. I'm not on TikTok. Are you on TikTok, Mo?
I am, but I'm not that active because people there are fierce, to be honest.
I know. It's so funny. I'm not on TikTok, and I did an item on television talking about my own hair loss post-COVID, which was not an uncommon thing for people to happen. And the hook for the whole item was rosemary oil. And I start by saying that there's one study from 1987 that shows this. However, over time, we've realized it's disproved. Let's work on to this, and this, minoxidil, whatever, you know, the whole thing. But all of TikTok just cut and pasted the first 60 seconds and then used me to sell rosemary oil. I do not believe in rosemary oil. It doesn't work. And the fact that they can do that and misuse my quotations means I'm off TikTok for life. So yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to say? Any burning issues before we wrap up? And by the way, you've been brilliant.
Thank you so much. I was super nervous. I'm still I'm sweating, but
you've been brilliant.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so my hope, just a message is that to everyone, don't be manipulated or feared or scared toward buying a specific product that can be more expensive just because it contains an ingredient. Always seek expert, always be critical. Why this person is telling me this product is bad, and is he or is she selling another product that replaces this product? Another thing is that a message to brands, please use the relevant expert for specific topics, because I would say dermatologists are not the skin expert, cosmetic chemists are not the skin expert. They are specialized in a specific field. And while hiring or taking the, let's say, the opinion of the relevant expert, misinformation can be decreased and you don't see a lot of misinformation running around. So those are my messages. And again, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you've been absolutely brilliant. Now, Mo is a champion of obviously science-based education, and he's brilliant. We mentioned Michelle, who is Lab Muffin, and I will tag her below. I will also tag Episkin and L'Oreal below, because they need to know that some people are championing on their behalf. The times I go to bat for L'Oreal, I can't tell you. I feel like I go to bat for them more often than other people do when people accuse them of doing animal testing. And I will save this. Obviously, I will save this. I started off by saying to Mo, do you want to talk about the products you love? And he went, no, let's bust all the myths. And to be honest, I don't use that many products, and the products I do use, I get sent. So at least you're being transparent and honest.
Everything. Because literally I am in this community, but I think I am the least person that use product. I love product, I love the innovation, but
you know the other person is, do you know Jen, who runs the EcoWell, Jen Novakovic? She's a formulating chemist. If you don't follow her, she's at the EcoWell. She's amazing. We did a live where she wanted to bust some myths, and she's incredible. She's doing a second PhD in, and I can't remember the exact title, but she's basically a formulating chemist, and her second PhD is in green formulations and the misinformation and the greenwashing, and she's just wonderful. She had about 3 products, and it was one of the shortest lives ever because she's in Canada. We had terrible signal. She went, I don't really use that many products, Nadine. So there you go. But genuinely, my little hardcore team of science educators that I love on here, you're the only toxicologist I follow, and I think you're absolutely amazing. But I will tag Michelle as well. She's a formulating chemist and a science communicator on here. And I agree. If you're looking for advice on safety, follow somebody that specializes in safety regulations. If you're looking for advice on how to look after your skin with prescription skincare, ask the advice of a dermatologist. If you want to know if your product is safely formulated, ask a formulating chemist there. And genuinely, everything I've ever learned about beauty, I have learned from smarter people than me, like this. So thank you. You were amazing. When are you coming to London? I need to take you for a drink.
Yes, hopefully I'm planning maybe next year. I'm not sure. So I need to stabilize here first in Milan and then hopefully explore Europe.
Okay. If you come to London, let me know and I'll get all of your fan base together. We can fangirl you, yeah?
Thank you. I would appreciate it. It would be amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Appreciate that. That was brilliant, truly.
Thank you.
You.
Bye. Bye-bye.